Hi everyone, in this video we are going to complete together the Excel project for Chapter 14. So I'm going to go ahead and go to our course and I'm going to log in and access the activity through My Lab and Mastering. Once you're logged into Pearson, scroll on down and locate Chapter 14, the materials for Chapter 14. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and open that folder. And we'll see the activities that need to be completed in here. As you can tell, I've already done this, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to redo it and do it together. Alright, so at first let's go ahead and download our materials. Make sure you download all the files. Once they're downloaded, extract them. And make sure that you're working with the extracted files. Alright, so the file that we need to start with is going to be the student file. Remember to print out the instructions. If you want to see a snapshot of what the final result should look like, take a peek at the JPEG that is included. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and double click on our start file. It's going to open up Microsoft Excel. And we can get started. So this is a typical worksheet. Alright, so when we're in Excel, Excel is a spreadsheet application. Take a peek and look around at the layout that we have with Microsoft Excel. Some of this is going to look familiar to you because we've already learned it in Microsoft Word, right? So we have tabs, we have ribbons, we have the controls for minimize, maximizing, and closing. We have our scroll bars. There's going to be certain groups within each of the tabs that are going to be relevant to Microsoft Word, and that just simply makes sense. Instead of having documents, we have worksheets. If we need to add more worksheets, we simply hit the plus sign. Right, so as we go through each of the 3 chapters that we have for Microsoft Word, I will be pointing out different pieces and tools within Microsoft Excel to help you get more acquainted with the application. So the very first thing that they ask us to do is to change our theme. So our themes are going to be located under the Page Layout tab, and off to the left we have a group called Themes, and the theme that they ask us to select is called Retrospect. So I'm simply going to hover over and look for the named theme, right? And so it is Retrospect. And with all themes, as we know from Microsoft Word, they have colors and fonts and effects that are associated with them. Within the theme themselves, though, we can modify these, right? So if I were to take a peek at the colors, I don't have to I don't have to select the colors that actually go with the theme. I could pick a different theme of colors. Same thing with our fonts as well as the effects. Alright, so we see that we have some options there. Alright, so the first thing we did was we changed our themes, and then it mentions that if any of the columns are too narrow, make sure that we apply an auto fit. Alright, so an auto fit means that we can see the information inside of the column, and when we don't have data in the corresponding cell, then the data or the information, the text in this case, I'm in cell A1, will follow or fall into the next column. If there is information in this particular cell, then that would be cut off, and Excel refers to that as being truncated. But we don't have that. Alright, so one of the things that we can do to adjust our column is to simply click and drag. Alright, notice as I'm clicking and dragging, it's showing me the width in points as well as in pixels. Another way that we can do that is to where the 2 columns meet, we can do a double click, and that does a automatic fit. Alright, so it's finding the longest, the largest cell, and then it will accommodate the entire column. All right. We can also use the tools on the Home tab. In our Format tab, you will see that we have a column width, auto fit for height, column width, we have an auto fit for width. All right, so these are the auto fits. So these are other options. Now, I can do more than one column at a time. I can double click by going to an auto fit by going to where the two columns meet. I'm going to undo and show you that I can also select the columns from the column headings, and I can also auto fit from that way as well. So there is no right or wrong way when we auto fit. It simply becomes a preference. And by selecting all the columns at one time just makes it more efficient than doing them one by one. Alright, so that is step number 1, where we changed our theme and we fixed our column headings. Step number 3, we're going to merge and center our titles. Alright, so we see at the very top we have Profit Marietta, that's our title, and then we have a subtitle, and then we have what we've referred to these as labels. Alright, so they're labeling different column headings or row headings. Alright, that's another term that you might hear. So before we can center the Profit Marietta across our data, we need to merge and we need to center it. We need to merge it rather and make it one cell. So I'm clicking in cell A1 and I'm going to click and drag all the way till I get to H1. Right? And in my alignment group I see there's a tool called Merge and Center, and what that does is it consolidates all those cells and it makes it one cell. So instead of having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 single cells, we now just have one cell, and that one cell is now called A1. With this as our heading, we're going to give this an appropriate style. So under our cell styles, get familiar with this tool. You're going to be visiting this in the next 3 chapters. So here's our cell styles, and because this is our title, we're going to apply a title style. The next thing we're going to do is take our subtitle, which is the regional sales to fitness clubs, and we're going to click and drag again all the way across. We're going to do a merge and center, and because this is a subtitle, we're going to give this a different type of heading style, and the heading style that they ask us to apply here is going to be a heading style 1. So let me just double check what we have here. So step 3 says merge and center the title across the range A1 through H1 and apply a title style. We did that. Merge and center the subtitle and apply a heading style 1. So this is our title style and this is our heading style 1. Alright, so that is step number 3. Next, they want us to select the 7-column titles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are our 7-column titles. I'm going to go ahead and select that. And we're going to apply center formatting. So up on my alignment, I'm simply going to select the center. And then for these, I want to have a heading 4. So again, I'm going to go back to my cell styles, and I'm going to apply a heading 4 style. So that is step number 4. Okay, so I could adjust that first column and make that an auto fit. So now I've reduced that, because before, if you remember, we had some data in here, so it was accommodating for the amount of content that was in that particular cell that would determine the width of that cell when it was set to auto fit. Because we've now merged and centered, it's now only looking at our regions for our fitness clubs. So step number 5. Step number 5, we're going to be using the quick analysis tool to sum our total sales and our quarter sales. So there are a number of ways that we can use the sum function. So before I introduce to you the quick analysis tool, I want to briefly explain other ways that we can add. Now, one of the first ways that students learn how to create a formula is to manually create a formula. And to manually create a formula, we would begin with an equal sign and we would click in the cell reference. Now sometimes you could either type it in, or I prefer to select the cell, and then we would hit a plus, and then I would say, so B4 plus B5 plus B6. All right, so, and then I would hit the enter key on my keyboard. The result is displayed in the cell, but I see the formula in the formula bar. Now, that's one way. Now, this is okay if you have a little bit of data. If you have rows and rows of data, this is prone to human error by using this. So we want to get into the routine of using the built-in formulas and functions that Excel provides. When there are opportunities for different types of functions where we have to use the click and a manual method, clicking in the cell and entering it in, which we will be doing a bit later on. However, when there is a formula, it's best to use the formula. So on our Home tab, because it is a widely used function, which is our sum function, I could have simply clicked in this cell and chosen the sum, the auto sum. It automatically puts a moving border around the cells where it finds values and numbers, right? And I could say enter. And again, I'm getting the same result, right? But up top, my formula is different because I'm using a predetermined or preset function that is built into Microsoft Excel. And the name of that formula is, or function, is called sum. And we have to identify the parameters. And the parameters are the range of B4 through to and including B6. So that colon says everything in between B4 and including those two cells. Now, if I wanted to look at the formula from the library, I could click on this button right here. This says this is our function, and this shows us and gives us some additional explanations. So we're saying that we want to sum this range. We refer to that as a range where we specify the first cell and the last cell, and we separate those two cells by a colon. So as we look down here, it says adds all the numbers in the ranges of the cells. We get the result displayed here. Then again, okay, it's giving us some additional explanation. And if you need additional help, you can click on the link. All right, so whenever you want to look at the function argument or look at it from the library itself, this is a really good tool. So getting back to our question and how the text would like us to enter in this, they want us to use the quick analysis tool. So I'm going to undo everything that I did here, okay? And when we use the quick analysis tool, first we need to select. And notice once I release my mouse, I get this little button that pops up, all right? It has a little lightning bolt on it. This is used because lightning bolt means quick, something that happens very quickly. This is our quick analysis, and if I click on that, it's trying to make an assumption about what it is that we want to do with this group of cells. In this case, we want to add them. So we want to go to the totals tool, and we want to use the horizontal tool. Notice there's the sum over here. We want to sum horizontally. It automatically places in the format as bold. All right, so one of the features that we do, this is referred to as a relative reference, right? Because we're creating a formula, and then we want to copy this formula across the 4 quarters. All right, so now when I click in cell C7, I have the same function, but now it's summing the contents for column C, and when I click in cell D, it's summing the contents for the 3 regions for the 3rd quarter, same for our 4th quarter. Now we're going to move in and use the auto sum tool for totaling all 4 of our quarters. So notice I clicked in the cell. That quick analysis is not coming up. I first need to select the range, and then I'm going to see the quick analysis tool come up. Again, I'm going to do totals, and I want to sum these. I'm getting a message here. There's nothing wrong with the data. The problem is that the cell itself is not wide enough. Notice as I hover over, I see the value. But because the column is narrow, I'm not seeing that value being represented. I'm just seeing these number symbols, hashtags, pound signs in the cell itself. So I'm simply going to go up to where my two columns meet. I'm going to do a double click, and that auto fits the content. Notice because also I use the quick analysis tool, it's going to bold my totals for me. So again, I am going to copy this down, and that will, I fill down that formula all the way down so it will make those calculations for me. Alright, so that is step number 5, where we use the quick analysis tool to sum our totals. Step number 6, we are going to, okay, so step number 6 is using the quick analysis tool to total the quarters. Alright, so I kind of jumped ahead there. Alright, so again, I want to point out to you that when we copy the formula down, it's going to be relative to the contents of that row, right? So we refer to that as a relative reference. A little later on, we're going to create a formula to calculate the percentage of our total sales, and we're going to be using an absolute reference. Alright, so I want to just point those two things out to you. Alright, so number 7. Okay, so number 7, we're going to do some formatting. Alright, so we've made some calculations in here, but now we want to clean up some of our information and make it look more professional. So we're going to apply an accounting number format to the first row of sales and to our total row. Alright, so we can do this all at one time by selecting the row of data and holding down the control key and selecting our total sales. With those two rows selected, I want to go up to my cell styles, and I want to apply, actually we're going to go to the number format, and we're going to go and select an accounting number format. And you can see that it places the $, and we have a comma as well as our comma separator, and then we have our decimal. Next, we're going to select the data in between, and we're going to apply our comma separator. So now everything aligns on the decimal. Alright, so that is the step number 7. Let me just double check that we've done everything. Oh, the final thing that we would like to do is format our total row with a total cell style. So I'm going to go ahead and select just my total row values, and again go over to my cell styles and select the total cell style. And what that does is it draws a single line above and a double line below. Okay, so let's move on to step number 8. Now what happens many times when we're entering in information is that we might forget information, or we need to edit or add new information, or even remove information. In this case, for step number 8, we need to add another region. So we want to add the Midwest region, and we want to place this Midwest region at row 6. So I'm simply going to click at row 6, and I'm going to do a right click and say insert, and it inserts a new row for me. So I could have clicked and dragged and moved everything, but again, if I have large amounts of data, it's much easier for me to insert a new row in this case. If I wanted to insert a column, I would come up to this where my columns meet and insert a column. But this particular step, we're going to be inserting a new row, and we're going to be inserting data for the Midwest region. Alright, so I'm simply going to click in and select, enter in the data and the data values. So for the first quarter, sales figures is $110,985.45. I'm going to tab. It's going to bring me over to my second quarter. We have $118,674.91. Notice as I am entering in, it's automatically applying that comma cell style, and that is because we're inserting in a place where formatting has already been applied. So for the third quarter, it's going to be $100,548.50. I'm going to tab over to my fourth quarter, which is $120,774.50. $621.17. All right, so I need to figure out my total for my Midwest region. And so the easy way to do that is go to the previous formula, the previous cell above that, and simply copy that formula down. All right, so now when I click in the cell for F6, I see that it is summing that range for B6 through E6. All right, so that is step number 8. Now step number 9, we're going to be inserting calculating our percentage of our total sales. All right, so this is where we work with an absolute cell reference. So an absolute reference references a cell that is a fixed reference. It's not going to change in the formula when it's copied. And so we want to figure out the total percentage of our total sales for the Northeast region. All right, so we take our total for Northeast and we are going to divide that by our total sales. All right, so when we construct this formula, we want to make this total sales reference an absolute reference. And so I'm going to show you how we go about doing that. So first, when we create a formula, we always need to begin our formula with an equals. So we start with equals. And again, we are going to take our Northeast total, which is in cell reference F4, and we want to divide that. And when we divide, we use a / and we want to divide that by the total sales for all of our regions, and that is in cell F8. All right, so I want to make, because I'm going to copy this formula down, I need to make that reference that we have in cell F8 an absolute reference. The easy way to do that is by using the function key on our keyboard, the F4. It is the function key that you have at the top of your keyboard. It's not the letter F and the number 4, but rather it is the function key F4. So I'm simply going to apply and hit the F4 function key, and it automatically places a $sign in front of the column reference and a $sign in front of the row reference, making this reference for the cell F8 an absolute reference. Again, so that when I copy the formula, it will always divide by the content or the value that is in that particular cell. I'm going to go up to my formula bar and hit the Enter key. And notice here on my formula bar it says equals F4 divided by $F, $8, and I see my value displayed here in decimals. Now a little bit later on we're going to format this and convert that to a percentage, but for now we're going to keep it as a decimal. We're going to copy this formula down. All right, so again, take that fill handle and drag down through G7. All right, so we've copied that formula down. Again, so what I want to point out to you again is we created our formula in cell G4. We took our total for the Northeast region and we divided it by our total sales. When I copied the formula down, it took the total for my Southeast region and it divided by our total sales for all 4 regions. Again, when I copied the formula down, it took the total for my Midwest region and divided it by my total sales. Here, take that over here. I clicked in the cell. So we want to divide by our total sales, and the same thing for our West region. Right? So it took the total for the West divided by the total sales. So when we say that we want to use a fixed reference, that's how it has to look. All right, so that's referred to as an absolute reference. We are going to now take these percentages that are in a decimal format, and we're going to convert them to a percentage. So I'm simply going to go up to my number group on my Home tab and change that to percentage. I would like to increase the decimal by 2 places, so I will click the Increase Decimal tool 2 times, and then finally I'm going to center that in the column. So that is step number 10. Now, step number 11, we are going to insert some spark lines, and we're going to place the spark lines in cells H4, 5, 6, and 7 in column H. Now, spark lines are tiny charts that are placed within the cell, and it shows the trend to the corresponding data for that particular row. Right, so the trend line that we enter here is going to be represented by the 4 quarters. How do we enter in a spark line? We can do them one at a time, or we can select the range. Right, so I can select this range here. I'll do them singly, and then I can show you what they look like. Okay, so we are going to go on the Insert tab, and in the spark line group there is line, and we need to tell Excel where they're getting this data from so we can draw the line. Because I have this cell selected, it knows where the range is going to be drawn, but it doesn't know what it's actually drawing, so we need to determine what that is. So we're going to select the first 4 quarters, or quarter 1, 2, 3, 4, and that is our data range, and the location range is where we've determined it. Once I say OK, it draws the line and shows the trend, right? So we can see that quarter 1 was high, quarter 2 was less, quarter 3 was the least amount, and then quarter 4 went back up again. Notice I did not include my totals for the regions, nor did I use the overall totals. I was only looking at my first 4 quarters. Because I've selected this, and again, if we looked at if you remember looking at the region, it was a absolute reference, all right, I can copy that formula down. All right, so when I look at this cell, the trend for H5, it's showing me the trend for the southeast region. So we've inserted our spark lines, and remember, spark lines show the trend with the corresponding data in that row. They're tiny charts, and they do a really nice visual representation of the data itself. We want to apply some formatting to these, so I'm going to go ahead and select those. All right, make sure that you don't use the fill handle, that when you select in the middle. Look at what my cursor looks like, and I simply click and drag down. We want to show our markers. Now, by applying the markers, we can now visually see where each quarter stops and starts, and where the growth and where the trend is within that particular line itself. We want to go a little bit further, and we are going to apply a different style, and the style that they ask for is in the second row, in the second column, the brown sparkline style, accent 2, darker 25%. Okay, so that is step number 11, inserting the spark lines. Okay, let's move on to step number 12. In step number 12, we're going to create a chart, and our chart is going to compare our quarterly sales of each region. Okay, so first thing we need to do is select the range that's going to represent the sales figures for the 4 quarters. When we select this data, we want to make sure that we select the column headings and the row headings. The reason we do that is so that when we create our chart, we have a legend and we have a category axis that is going to be labeled for us. We are going to insert a chart, so I need to go up to the Insert tab, and in my Charts group, under the Recommended Charts, we are going to select the chart that represents, it tells us here, a cluster column with regions as the category axis. So if I look at the first option that I have here, my regions are in the legend. This is our legend down here. They want the regions to be on the category axis. My quarters are on the category axis. So let's look at the second option. My second option shows me still a clustered column, and my regions are now on the category axis, and my quarters are now in the legend. So I've known that I know that I've selected the correct chart type. And in the real world, we would just pick a chart that would best represent the data that we are charting. However, for this particular activity, we are just going to follow along the recommendations of the activity. So we've selected the cluster column, and the next thing we want to do is we're going to apply a chart style. So notice that when we inserted the chart, we now have a contextual tab called Chart Tools, and there are two tabs, Design and Format. All right, so under the Design is where we're going to find our chart styles, and our instructions ask us to insert chart style number 8. So you can hover over or count. All right, I believe this is style number 8, and when I find it, I'll go ahead and select that particular style. Now, they want us to change the color of this particular style. So it's kind of dark, but so we're going to just simply go over to the change color, and under the colorful, we're going to go ahead and select colorful palette number 3. And next, they want us to move this chart and place it so that the middle sizing handle, this is the middle sizing handle, that circle right there. They want that middle sizing handle to be between columns D and E at row 9, just below row 9. So when I move my chart, I'm going to make a note that middle sizing symbol there, that circle, is just between the two T's, the T of chart and the T of title. Because when I start to move it, that sizing symbol there, that circle is going to disappear. All right, see, it moved. But I do know that it's somewhere between the two T's, and they would like me to place this just below row 9. And when I release it, there is my middle sizing, handle. All right, that's the middle sizing handle, and it's going to be between D and E. All right, so I'm just going to pick it up and move it over just a smidge, and if needed, I can always use my arrow keys on my keyboard, and that's your nudging tool by using that. All right, so that nudges it up and down. I see I'm doing a lot of nudging. All right, but I'm going to come on back up because they would like it just below row 9. So it's inside of row 10, just below row 9. All right, so this is that middle sizing handle, and we have that placed exactly where we want it. Step number 14, we're going to put in a chart title that is more meaningful. All right, this is telling us that we need to put a chart title in. So you can click and drag inside. I like to select the chart title and enter my chart title in my formula bar. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And we are going to call this Regional Sales to Fitness Clubs It Remembers. That's what I called it last time. And then I hit my enter key, and that places it in my chart title area. Next thing we want to do is deselect the chart. So once I deselect my chart, I want to click outside in the white space anywhere in my worksheet, and that deselects the chart. Notice that the contextual tabs that pertain to charts has now disappeared. If I wanted to work in my chart again, I would select it, and then my chart tools appears. So when I deselect, they go away. Alright, so we've deselected our chart. We are now on step number 15. We want to change our page orientation. We want to center the page horizontally and put a footer in with a file name. Alright, so there is one place that we can go to that we can do these all at the same time. Alright, so on the page layout tab, I can change my orientation. Alright, but that's about it. Alright, if I open up the page setup dialog box, I can do all of these things at the same time. So the first thing they would like us to do is to change the page orientation. Notice we have 4 different tabs here within the page setup dialog box. So on the page tab, I'm going to go ahead and change my orientation. I'm going to click on my margins tab, and this is where I'm going to find the centering the sheet, centering everything that's on the sheet horizontally on the page. And then I want to put in a footer. All right, so that's going to be under my header and footer tab. And we want to apply a custom footer. And in the left section, they ask us to insert the file name. Right, we're putting in a file name field. You did this in Microsoft Word. They want the file name field. You are not to manually type in the file name. That is a no-no. We want the file name field. Take a look at and hover over each of these tools at the top until you see the one that says Insert File Name, and that's the file name field. We're going to go ahead and say OK, and we can say OK again. And just so we can see what this looks like, I'm going to go ahead and do a File and Print, and you can see that's the file name field that we placed in the footer here. Everything is centered horizontally, and we have a orientation that is landscape. Right, so I'm going to go back to my worksheet. The final item that we have for the activity is step number 16. We're going to insert the document properties, very similar to what we did in Microsoft Word. I'm going to go to the File tab to our Backstage view, make sure I show all properties, and I'm going to add some tags. The tags I'm going to add is fitness clubs, comma, and regional sales. We want to make sure in the subject we have our course name, and they also want to make sure our name is displayed as the author. All right, I don't think you need to add the authors, but as long as you see your name here, you are okay. All right, so we are done. I'm going to go ahead and save this, and then you're ready to save this file and submit it to the grader in my lab. Okay, so we can go on back to my lab. We'll go ahead and locate the file that we were working on. I don't believe, did I give this a name? I didn't name mine, so mine is still 14G regional sales. All right, so come back over here. It's going to be this file. I'll go ahead and say open, upload, and then submit for grading. Okay, so this is Chapter 14, Excel. This is our first chapter for Microsoft Excel. Please make sure you go through and do the training. In addition, this may be a little more meaningful to you once you look at the training and having me go through this step by steps. So if you have any questions, kindly let me know, and please bring your questions to our live Zoom meeting on Wednesday. Okay, you guys have a great day and stay healthy.